Time for another board game review, and this time we have the game Cthulhu Realms. This was sent to me by Tasty Minstrel Games and is designed by Darwin Castle. So this is actually a sort of re-implementation of the game Star Realms, which I recently just played for the first time, and so it's going to be interesting because I have that in my mind, and I'm kind of, whether I'd like it to or not, I'm comparing it to this. So let's see, if you've played Star Realms, I'll kind of explain how this compares to that game. And which one I prefer. But anyway, Cthulhu awakens! Summon his unspeakable pals for a fun-filled romp through the sanity of the human race. In this deck-building game, card combos can be worth more than the sum of their parts, so draft carefully to unlock your deck's full potential. Alright, let me show you how to play. So, Cthulhu Realms is a deck builder. You're trying to take down your opponent's sanity points, which is kept track of on this handy little mat here, and whoever gets knocked down to 0 first is the loser. So throughout the game, you're playing cards, triggering abilities, triggering combos, buying other cards to add to your deck, and going on from there. There are 4 colors of cards: yellow, purple, green, or black, and they have one of 3 types: entity, artifact, or location. And these are indicated by the symbols in the bottom left for their type. This is a location, and this is an artifact. And everything in the general area currently are entities. Every card in the top right has a sanity cost. That's how many sanity points or whatever you need to buy the card. Or, I'm sorry, conjure the card. And then on the left side of each card, they have symbols that correspond to the abilities that you can trigger when you play the card. Now, in the beginning of the game, you're not going to have some of these special cards. So I'll just show you how to purchase cards first. So let's say this is my hand. I play these cards. So this number in the top left tells you how many conjuring power you get. This does sanity damage to your opponent. And this symbol means you have to choose one of the two. And also, this is a special abjuring cost ability. Abjuring a card means if you throw away this card permanently from the game, you get to do an ability. It's like trashing it, basically. So looking here, let's say I chose all the conjuring cost symbols. That would be 5 total, and then one sanity damage to your opponent. So with 5, I could buy Amigo, which is 3, or this Yithian, which is also 3. If you purchase one, you add it to your discard pile, and so that card is now part of your deck. And when you buy a card, you replace it with the next card in the general deck. So you could theoretically buy this one as well. And then I could buy the can't pronounce that, that fragment. This is 2, and so I could purchase this as well and add it to my deck if I wanted to. Now let's say you did have some special cards in your hand. Artifacts and entities, when played, get discarded at the end of the turn, but locations actually stay in play, and these are locations here. After you play all your cards and purchase any cards, you draw 5 cards and continue. Now let's talk about how abilities work. Each time you play a card, you may use all of the abilities on it once. You don't have to, but you can. And you can do them in any order and at any time. Location cards that you've played on previous turns still in front of you can also use their abilities on your next turn whenever they're still around. Some abilities have prerequisites on them. For example, this ability here requires another green card to be in play in order to use this -2 sanity damage ability. And let's go through some of the abilities. This is the double-sided arrow, meaning that you can activate one or the other ability. And Abjuring, like I said before, removes the card you choose from the game. Now, some locations have a shield symbol on them. What that means is that opponents are prevented from applying loss of sanity to something specific. With this symbol, with the little person inside, if you have this location in play in front of you, opponents may not attack your sanity unless this location is destroyed first. So your opponent would need to do 4 sanity damage to this and destroy it before being able to touch you. Locations with a nexus symbol like this prevent the opponent from damaging your other locations that don't have this symbol. So it kind of protects your other locations. However, they may still apply sanity loss to you. There's other prerequisites. Here's another yellow card needs to be in play. This one, a location has to be in play. So they're all different sort of ways you can kind of combo off each other. So if you have a lot of yellow cards with the yellow prerequisites, you could really trigger some some devastating combos that way. I'm not going to go through every single ability type in the game, but there are cards that let you draw cards or discard cards or gain health or do damage. All sorts of cards that do different little fun things. Let me just show you kind of like a typical hand to play. So look, if I have these 5 cards, this one is a +1 conjuring cost, this one is a +2 conjuring cost, and lets me abjure a card of my choice from my discard pile or hand. So if there was like a shitty card in my discard pile, I could get rid of it to make my deck more efficient. Now, as you can see, this ability here requires another green card in play to trigger it, so I can't do it yet. But since I have this card, it's a green card, so after I play this, I can go back and trigger this. This causes 1 damage to the opponent. Can't trigger this because this requires a card to be discarded in order to use this ability, so I'll ignore that for now. And then what else do I have here? I have here's a yellow sign. This is a +2 conjuring cost. And then this can't be triggered because I haven't played a yellow card. But my other card is a yellow card, and so this is -3 damage to the opponent. Now these both can actually trigger because I have played a yellow card and a yellow card. They trigger each other. So this one I can choose to either draw a card or discard a card. And this one I can draw a card. So I'll draw a card with this ability, then discard my opponent's card with this ability. Aha! Now that my opponent has discarded a card, this ability can trigger, so now I can draw a card. So it gets a little complicated, but as you can see, as you play put down cards, they trigger abilities for each other. So when everything's said and done, this would be 5 conjuring cost. I would have drawn 2 cards, my opponent would have discarded 1 card, and I would have done 4 damage to my opponent. So with the 5 conjuring cost, I can look and go, maybe I want to get a, I don't know, Miskatonic Hospital from the lineup, and add that to my discard pile. That kind of gives you an idea of how these cards kind of trigger each other and combo off of each other. A lot of them have prerequisites for their abilities, so if you play cards that match that prerequisite, then you can go back to those cards and trigger them, and so on and so forth. And so that's kind of the strategy of the game, is finding cards that work with each other well, and so that they can take out your opponent quickly and efficiently. So before I compare it to Star Realms, I'll just say on its own, the core gameplay is still, it's fun. I mean, deck building is always fun. Getting new cards to add to your deck, removing cards you don't want, having the cards combo off of each other with the colors and the prerequisites is fun. So it's a fun deck builder. One issue I have with the game, though, is the usage of these symbols instead of text. And I'll always say this, just put text on the cards. Star Realms has text on the cards, but even if Star Realms didn't exist, it's just, there are a lot of symbols, and yes, you can learn them. Yes, it's not impossible to memorize them, but it's just, like, there's so much space here that's wasted. It's just the art. Not that art's not important, but I think you could have maybe moved the art up a little bit and put a text thing here. I don't know, man. That's just me. I mean, there's symbols on symbols. It's just, I mean, when you're first learning it, it's just kind of annoying. And I'm just like, man, you could have easily just put text on this. Star Realms has symbols, but there's like 3 symbols, like cost, like attack and health or whatever. Like, that's it. But this is just, come on, like, at first glance, like, this and this, it's just confusing. Like, what does this mean? You have to kind of think about it while you're kind of learning how to play, because it's like a little too messy for my tastes. Then let's talk about the prerequisites. Yeah, the prerequisites were in Star Realms, but that was just a very simple color-based one, basically. Like, did you play a blue card? All right, play this other blue ability. Some cards have 2 prerequisites. This one requires a green card to have played and a card to have been discarded. And with the locations, like, some locations protect you, others protect other locations. It's like it's trying to be more complex, and it just feels muddy. When you're playing like 5 different cards And you have to think about, oh, was a card discarded at some point in this turn? Okay, and then a green card. It just gets a little clunky in my opinion. I mean, with Star Realms, you know, it can already get a little complicated because if you're playing like, here's a blue card, here's a blue card, all right, now this blue card triggers this blue card, and this green card triggers this green card. You know, that alone is like a little bit of like, okay, trying to keep track of stuff. But when you have 2 prerequisites on a card, come on, what does that add? It just adds a layer of complexity that is just kind of not really adding much. There is a streamlined elegance to Star Realms that I think this game lacks. I think that might be what makes this not as enjoyable to me, even though the core gameplay is still the same concept, but it just feels like a clunkier, messier version. One thing I will say is that it has a scoreboard, which is way more preferable than Star Realms. Star Realms has a ridiculous system where it's like you have these cards with numbers on them, like 20, 10, 5, and you use that to calculate your score. Ridiculous. This is a much smoother, cleaner interface for score tracking. Anyways, I know not everyone has played Star Realms, so I will say, for my final verdict on this, it's pretty alright. It's fun. I mean, at its core, it's fun, because it still has the gameplay idea of Star Realms, the deck building and combo playing. But if I were to recommend a game, I would recommend Star Realms over this reskinned, unless you love Cthulhu. If you just adore Cthulhu, then check this out. Or if you're like a huge Star Realms fan and you just gotta have all the variants, then yeah, it's an interesting version of it. Clunkier in my opinion, but it's alright.